From coffins to Christmas trees, these are the weirdest things you can bring on an airplane. Where today we're going to be talking about the most bizarre things that passengers have actually tried to bring on airplanes. Because if there's one thing that I've learned about flying, it's that people will try and bring some of the most random things onto an airplane. So let's talk about it. Starting off our list today, we have coffins. Now, you might be saying, that is just absurd. Who would want to bring a coffin onto an airplane? Well, believe it or not, this has happened multiple times where individuals have attempted to bring an actual coffin onto an airplane with them. And the reasoning for this was because they had lost somebody very close to them, and they wanted to bring their body with them. Or in other situations, maybe they were bringing the coffin because they didn't feel like their loved one would be respected properly at their destination if they were to put them in the cargo hold underneath the plane. But unfortunately, airlines do not allow coffins in the cabin or in the cargo hold unless proper arrangements have been made ahead of time. In addition to this, usually the airline will require a death certificate and other documents to prove that the coffin is actually containing human remains before they will even allow it on the flight. And to make matters worse, coffins are extremely heavy. So trying to sneak one onto a plane obviously isn't going to go very smoothly. Moving on, we have Christmas trees. Now, this one might seem a little bit more reasonable than the last one, but trust me, it gets just as ridiculous. There have been several incidents in the past where people have tried to bring full-size Christmas trees on the planes with them in the cabin, typically in the wintertime right before Christmas. And apparently, this is something that happens quite frequently to the point where airlines have actually had to release statements saying that passengers are not allowed to bring Christmas trees onto the airplane. And this is not only because of the size of the tree, which would obviously make it difficult for it to fit in the overhead bin, but also because of the sap that can drip from the tree and get all over the plane. In addition to this, it can also be a fire hazard depending on the type of tree that you bringing on board. So if you really want to bring a Christmas tree with you on your trip, typically what you can do is wait until you arrive at your destination and then pick up a small tabletop Christmas tree upon arrival. Moving on, we have cremated remains and a human skull. This one definitely sounds a little bit dark, but it's actually something that is allowed on airplanes as long as you have the proper documentation. In fact, a lot of major airlines actually have specific guidelines about bringing human remains on the aircraft, stating that you must notify the airline at the time of booking so that they can make special arrangements for your trip. Typically, according to these guidelines, the remains need to be placed inside a sealed container that's leak-proof and airtight. In addition to this, it needs to be less than 30 pounds or 14 kilograms. And if it's going to be traveling in the cabin with you, you'll have to present a signed statement from the funeral director releasing the remains to you. Otherwise, it needs to be sent separately. One thing that might sound a little bit creepy is that in addition to these guidelines, most airlines also require that the container with the remains is clearly labeled with the passenger's name and destination. Now, what makes this so strange is that while human remains are allowed on the aircraft, human skulls are not. And this one incident where a woman tried to bring a human skull onto the aircraft with her by hiding it inside of her carry-on luggage. She was stopped by security, who noticed that there was a suspicious shape inside of her bag. When asked what the item was, she claimed that it was a part of a movie prop. However, when airport officials searched the rest of her luggage, they found additional skulls, along with bones and animal pelts that were not properly documented. To make matters worse, when they searched her hotel room, they found an axe, zip ties, duct tape, garbage bags, and several articles that detailed different ways to dismember a body. After finding all this evidence, she was arrested and ultimately sentenced to 18 months in jail for trying to bring a prohibited item onto the aircraft. Moving on, we have bowling balls. Now, I'm sure most of us have seen those videos where somebody tries to sneak a full-size bowling ball onto an airplane and puts it inside of an overhead bin. But did you know that a man actually tried to do this back in 2019? A Russian man named Dimitar Demov tried to check in for his flight to Moscow when he was stopped by airport security, who realized that his suitcase was extremely heavy, weighing in at 70 kilograms, which is almost double the maximum weight limit of 35 kilograms. Upon further inspection, they discovered that the heavy suitcase contained 7 bowling balls that were wrapped in lid shielding. As it turns out, Mr. Demov had heard that lead can block metal detectors, and so he thought that by wrapping his bowling balls in lead, they wouldn't be detected, and he would be able to bring them onto the plane with him. Unfortunately, his plan didn't work, and he ended up being fined $750 for trying to bring a prohibited item onto the aircraft. Moving on, we have live lobsters. Now, this one might sound a little bit crazy, but it's actually something that has happened several times in the past, where people have tried to bring live lobsters onto airplanes with them. The most famous incident being a case where a pilot was cited for trying to smuggle 600 pounds of live lobsters worth an estimated $100,000 from Canada into the United States in the cargo hold of his plane. Now, you might be saying, why would somebody try to smuggle lobsters? They're not even in danger. It's not like you're saving the species here. And to that I would say that while it might not have anything to do with saving the species, it does have everything to do with saving money. See, at the time of the incident, live lobsters could only be imported into the United States from Canada. And so the pilot, along with 3 other people involved in the smuggling operation, were planning on selling the lobsters at a seafood market in Boston for a huge profit. Unfortunately for the pilot, they were caught, and he ended up being fined $75,000 and sentenced to 3 years probation, with the judge saying that he had engaged in a blatant disregard for the law. Moving on, we have tattoos. Now, in the past, people have actually tried to bring tattoo guns onto airplanes with them to continue their tattooing careers while on vacation. However, the TSA has specifically stated that tattoo ink and tattoo guns are prohibited on all flights, and that anybody who tries to bring them on board will face serious consequences. In addition to this, many local governments also have laws against tattooing without a license. And so even if you were able to sneak a tattoo gun onto the airplane and tattoo somebody while you're on vacation, chances are you're going to face some serious legal trouble when you arrive at your destination. Moving on, we have guns. Now, I am sure we've all heard stories about how the TSA has confiscated toy guns from kids at airport security checkpoints. But did you know that a man once tried to sneak an actual loaded handgun inside of his carry-on luggage? On January 11th, 2020, a man flew from Dallas to Nashville on Frontier Airlines Flight 1414. At the time of the incident, he was serving in the U.S. Army and claimed that he had forgotten that he had left a 9mm handgun inside of his backpack. According to the FBI, he claimed to have packed the gun on December 28, 2019, while he was in Texas, and completely forgot about it before going to the airport. Fortunately, the gun was detected in the X-ray machine at the security checkpoint, and nobody was harmed during the incident. However, he was arrested and ultimately sentenced to 10 months in prison for trying to sneak a gun onto the airplane. Moving on, we have antlers. So naturally, this next story takes place in Alaska, where a man tried to bring a set of elk antlers onto the airplane with him. He claimed that he had no idea that it was prohibited, and that he had recently picked the antlers up from a friend and decided to pack them in his luggage for safekeeping. However, airport staff informed him that he would not be able to bring the antlers with him onto the plane, and told him that he would either need to ship them or throw them away. The man ended up deciding to throw the antlers away, which prompted him to call the police and file a complaint for the theft of his property. However, after investigating, the police said that the man had knowingly tried to bring the antlers onto the plane, and that airport staff acted within their rights when they told him to dispose of them. And last but not least, we have handcuffs and wipes. So in 2 separate incidents in the past, 2 men have tried to sneak handcuffs onto airplanes with them. The first man was headed from Israel to London Gatwick Airport when his bag set off the metal detector alarm. When airport security searched his bag, they discovered a pair of handcuffs that he had hidden inside. And according to the man, he had simply brought them with him as souvenirs. The second incident took place a year later in Florida, when a man tried to bring handcuffs onto an airplane. However, he was quickly caught by airport security and ended up getting arrested for trying to sneak a prohibited item onto the aircraft. In addition to this, he also got banned from the airport and is now on the FBI's no-fly list. Now, in another situation that wasn't necessarily trying to bring something onto the plane, but instead take it off the plane, a man from South Carolina was busted after trying to steal over $30,000 worth of baby wipes from an airplane. According to airport officials, he entered the secured area of the airport through an employee entrance and proceeded to walk onto the tarmac, where he stole boxes of baby wipes from a Delta flight that had arrived from California. After stealing the wipes, he exited the airport and tried to flag down a ride. However, an airport employee recognized him and contacted police, who were able to recover the stolen goods and arrest the man for his actions. Now, while these are definitely some of the strangest things that people have tried to bring onto planes, I'm sure that we could all agree that nothing beats the time that a passenger tried to bring a live, pot-bellied pig onto the airplane with them as a service animal. And if you want to see that absolutely insane situation, check out this video up here where I break down the entire situation and why this poor pig ended up getting kicked off the flight. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you love to travel and enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't done so already. I hope you have an awesome day. Stay safe, and I will see you in the next video.